Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. The crowd is a lot bigger than I thought it would be, so that's a good sign. My name is good. Can everyone hear me? All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. The crowd is a little bigger than I thought it would be, so I'm happy to see that. I'm also happy to see a bunch of familiar faces, which is nice. My name is Jeroen Spitaels. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at trough, a.k.a, which means I'm not the technical guy. So if there's any technical questions at the end, I'm happy to try my best, but of course very happy to refer you to our technical people as well. Over the next 20 minutes, I want to walk you through a public sector AI implementation that has gone live in Europe. I'm originally from Europe, from Belgium, where Drupal was born, I think. But I do live here in New York, which is why I am now also going to steal the slides from our head of innovation who lives in Belgium. What we're going to walk through today is the EPSO case, the European Personal Selection Agency. What the challenge was, how we solved it, the results that we're seeing, and the steps we took during the whole process. All right. We built what we call an AI-powered open digital experience platform, which consists of three pillars. We have our content delivery system, CMS, built on Drupal, a marketing automation, and a customer data platform. With now AI engagement features that you all know, content, personalization, marketing automation, the whole thing. And on the very top, of course, we have our KPI-driven AI agents that act on behalf of the marketer, the editor, and the PM. The whole thing sits on structured content foundation underneath, and that layering matters for what comes next. Now, the way we deal with information, I think, has changed a lot. Anyone here in the crowd that's, let's say, over 30 will recognize this to be a floppy disk. Anyone under 30 will probably think this is the logo for Instagram or something different. But I think the good news here for especially the Drupal crowd is that I think we're absolutely sitting on gold, on the best place where we can be to structure our data, to structure our content. I think really it's the best place to be. Now, the macro problem for all of it is that the way users ask questions today has fundamentally shifted. A few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, you would go onto Google, you typed in some keywords, you got a list of links, you clicked through them, you looked a little bit around, and then eventually you found something close enough to an answer. And that was the whole deal. But how that works today is, of course, fundamentally different with tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Grok, you name it. You type in a full natural language question, you get one single conversational, citation-based, hopefully backed answer. No more clicking through 10 links. That's the new expectation for every website, for every interaction. And I think that's the new bar that we're all measured against. And I think here is where most websites do get stuck. Someone goes to your website with a real question, like what's the phone number of the Zurich office? They type it into the search box, nothing happens, no results. Kind of like a 2010 experience meeting a 2026 and beyond expectation. And every time that happens, frustration goes up, especially for large websites where a lot of the Drupal stuff is built on, like government, which we'll talk about, like higher university, higher education, all those things. Like the contact center just, it isn't what it used to be. No. What it should look like is this. The Zurich office phone number, the address, the email, all pulled neatly from your own content. Cited in the user's language. It's not a future state, what we're doing today. And it's also what I'll show you in a little while for the EPSO case, but I'll also give you a little teaser for another very similar case that we did at the Belgian European water utility company called Pitba. So who is this actually for? Well, we kind of split it into 4 different kinds of users. We've got our external users, people on the website trying to get meaningful interactions through AI search, chatbots, AI submission helpers, content recommendations, you name it. And on the internal side of the business, we have our editors getting document proofreading, readability, compliance checks, AI translations, marketing people getting automated derivatives, image translations, SEO, GEO, that whole thing. And then of course the back office, which needs things like email triage, scientific regs, email GPT, the whole thing, or what we would call my company GPT. A simple framing is that the external is meaningful interactions, a good experience, a digital experience, and what the internal part needs is just efficiency. And EPSO, our case, which we'll show, touches on both of those things very well. Now, we've shipped this kind of work over the last 12 years to a bunch of companies. I would be surprised if the non-Europeans would know a lot of these because they're very heavily European-based. We are by nature a European company, but we're active all over the world. Very typical sectors, higher education, public sectors, government, finance, those types of things. And today we'll cover two stories, one for PITPA, the one right here, and one for EPSO, the European Selection Agency. Before we do so, one platform feature I want to surface specifically for those cases is AI search options. Same engine, multiple indices on the same infrastructure, website content, legislation, the whole thing. You can have one external surface, ask us anything about brand X, and a separate internal interface, ask us anything across multiple systems and documents. It's the same engine, but scoped completely different. And I think for EPSO, our case, which we'll dive in right now, that distinction really matters a lot. Now let me take you to the use cases. Before we dive into EPSO, let's talk about PITPA, something very similar. PITPA, as I mentioned, is a company that probably almost no one knows here, but PITPA is the Belgian water utility company, a public sector service provider, government, that whole thing. The challenge they came to with us is digitize contact moments to make our service more efficient, while always putting the experience of the citizen first, and of course keeping things fully accessible. And the solution we built is a new user web app that helps users find that information quickly. And the result is that as their team is reporting to them, because it's all live, is something we didn't really expect, less training time for employees because they can also use what's actually live, less time updating all of those scripts, and a reduced amount of contacts hitting the contact center. A few specifics on how we actually did that for PITPA is that we established a clearly defined scope, answer for our own content only, not the open internet. So if you go into PITPA and you ask, who is going to win the FIFA World Cup in a couple of weeks, it won't be able to tell you. Or who won it 4 years ago, it definitely won't be able to tell you as well. It's trained on our own data. We adopted a phased approach, which I think is a very important one for these larger companies, public-facing companies. We achieved a measurable reduction in the number of contacts. And I think critically, all of this was built on out-of-the-box drop-solid integrations that we already have. So this is what the user sees in the end, like the 2026 experience that everyone is expecting nowadays. The PITPA AI assistant, called PIP, of course. A user types in a real question. Hey, I've got a water leak. What do I do? PIP responds with guidance, with the relevant phone number, what to write down, what to expect from the technician, and importantly, all links it to a source, a citation, that where it was built on. So that it isn't showing the user that potentially is hallucinating, which sometimes happens, like it's trained on your own data and you get the source there right away. So 4 things I want to highlight is that the input on top, it's all natural language, no keyword guessing, the textual answer grounded in PITPA's own content, the source link, and the feedback widget at the bottom. Was this answer good? Something that the users can use, but also internal users to continuously train what we're doing and find knowledge gaps over time. And here's what the PITPA team told us in terms of improved efficiency, our internal users, if you will. It went up. There's fewer cases overall. Employee onboarding takes less time because new agents already have answering engines to lean on. The case management takes less time. Key statistics show just a strong improvement overall, but especially in average handling times. User friendliness goes up. That 2026 experience or that 2026 expectation is just there. Users find answers quicker, the better answer, and the content management itself takes less time because now the editorial team, the FAQ team, the support team, the webmasters can see what's working and what isn't working and work through that feedback. Now, one more thing about PITPA, sort of a peek behind the red curtain, if you will. They were pretty happy with all of this, so we are now also enrolling an additional chatbot widget for their entire website. It's not really a slide we put in to brag too much, but I think it's a slide that says like these types of interfaces, experiences, setups are working, and it's where sort of the world, the digital world, is definitely moving ahead to. Now the main event is the EPSO case. EPSO stands for the European Personnel Selection Office, which I'll explain to you in a little bit what that actually means. But the challenge they came to with us basically had three phases. Number one, they have a stampede of incoming questions, more than a contact center could or should realistically handle. Second, very similar questions all the time, asked in many slightly different ways. And third, it's Europe after all, so a very heavy multilingual environment. The solution we agreed on, same thing, AI search on two surfaces, one for the employees, one for the external users, the applicants in this case. To get a grasp of what the European Selection Agency really is that basically if you want to apply to any job related to the European government, European Commission, those types of things, like you don't just like knock on the door and get in. There's a bunch of tests you need to do and a bunch of competitions that are online for all the different agencies and all of the different worlds. Like it's pretty big, it's Europe, it's heavily regulated, all of that stuff. So there's on every year over 400,000 different candidates, 7,000 laureates, test centers in 64 different countries worldwide, more than 250 open competitions at any given time. They recruit for 10 different EU institutions, and they have a budget of 27 million euros. So like it's quite big. So whatever we build for EPSO needs to be able to handle that type of scale. I think here is our process. Like, don't read into it too much, but it's just to show like it's complicated, and that's the point, right? Like this type of process isn't really to be underestimated, but what we want to show you is like there's multiple stakeholders, multiple stages, multiple flows, many questions from candidates that have entered a competition, that are applying for a job, from very simple ones like can I apply, yes or no, to genuinely complex questions for the 410,000 that are online. I'm at stage 3 of competition X and at stage 2 of competition Y, but I want to slightly update my resume here and here. Can I do that, yes or no? And that's a very hard problem to handle and answer at scale. So the initial plan that we built, which is in production on the EU career site, is that a candidate, again, will type in a real question. What are the EPSO tests? And gets a structured response in return. A clean explanation of the reasoning skills, the competency test, the citation back to the official source. Again, that same thing, super important to avoid any hinges of hallucinations. That's how we build it. The same engine, different question. How do I contact EPSO? Now the answer covers the contact form, data protection, complaints, and below the answer, an explicit list of all of the documentations on communication, compliance, privacy statements, complaints, plus again, the feedback button for internal users to find different knowledge gaps. So you can see sort of like very similar setup to PITPA, but of course at a much larger and complicated scale. So here's what the EPSO webmasters told us. They've reported back that on average now, for every 2,000 questions that come in, 500 of those actually make their way through a human in the contact center. Those are typically sort of the second line, the third line, the harder questions, the harder cases to solve, and 1,500 are just solved by our AI search. I think the feedback on answer quality has been pretty positive, and I want to be straight, like the rollout has been pretty deliberate, and the steady state numbers are still settling, because this isn't something that you're able or allowed to roll out just like that. But I think the direction where all of this is going is pretty clear and like pretty promising. We're quite happy with everything. So the natural next step, of course, is email, right? Because they're not only getting a bunch of answers through their website, they're also getting a bunch of emails. So again, email GPT, EPSO GPT, if you will, same engine, different surface. EPSO also has a large number of emails coming in to the contact center. Again, similar questions in slightly different forms, the whole thing. So we again are setting up the same thing, same content, same logic, same replies. The agent, in this case, reviews, edits, sends, or set it up to be able to send. It's not live yet, we're scoping all of that, but the architecture and what it's all built on is very, very similar to the actual AI search, what's already live. Now, let me briefly unpack what that means and what's actually happening under the hood, because I think it does matter for the transparency story. And disclaimer, I'm not an engineer, so I'm very much relying on the slides that my head of innovation gave me. So this is RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. The simple version is on the left. You have structured content that comes in through documents, articles, legislation. We chop those up into different chunks of roughly equal size, and each chunk gets converted into a vector, which is basically a long list of numbers that represents the meaning of the text, not the actual words. Those vectors live in a vector database. Whenever the underlying content changes in the CMS, the vector updates. So the search index is always in sync with the actual source. A user asks a question, the question gets vectorized too. We do a vector search to find the chunks that are conceptually closest, and notice that it's not keyword matching, that's meaning matching of those vectors. We rank the results, we hand the top chunks to a large language model with a strict set of restrictions. The model generates a textual response, the answer the user sees, or the email reply that gets drafted. The key message here is that it's not a generic chatbot, it's an answering engine that's mathematically grounded in the customer's own content. I think that's a super important part of it. Once that vector database is there, the same engine can search across multiple knowledge silos, the website, the legislation database, SharePoint, Confluence, whatever you're using. From the user side, it's one question, one answer. From your side, it's a cross-system search, dramatically faster. You don't have to migrate or merge those systems first. The vector layer sits on top. Now let me get to transparency. So we track everything that happens in the system. Number of traces, the model cost, scores, which models are being used, what's the cost of that. It's a real dashboard from a Dropsolid AI deployment. Every interaction is observable, everything is auditable, and we can drill all the way down to a single trace. Like for example, if a question came in on a Tuesday where someone really didn't like the answer or the answer was completely wrong, we can pull up that exact same interaction, replay it, debug it, fix it. I think that observability when you're talking to public-facing government agencies such as EPSO or PITBA is super crucial. Speaking of those, like how do we actually roll all of that out from ID into production safely? There's three phases. One is the internal evaluation, which is first iterations with our testing team. Two is using it in the contact center internally to further refine everything based on the feedback that we're getting from the people who actually deal with those users. And then number three, the final step, is a silent launch to the end users. Controlled exposure first, broader after. This is exactly how we rolled out the PITBA, the Belgian Utility Water Company case, and how we're now also rolling out the European version for EPSO. So deliberately in stages, not all together in one bang and just roll the dice on 400,000 applications that are online. I'll skip this one for time, but there's three guarantees we make on data. One, the AI does not retain your data. Two, there's no training on your data. And three, we run a comprehensive compliance posture across the platform. And those three together are what allow a European institution, a government-facing institution, to actually say yes to deploying an AI in production. We deploy anywhere, on-premise, in the cloud, on service. We are a vendor-independent AI layer model. All of that works. And one of the reasons why that is because we're also ISO 27001 certified company, I think since early 2024, which again for those European type of larger public-facing companies is super crucial. So we handle everything from security management over the entire organization and so on. So any auditor or buyer can just request whatever it is they want to see. Taps into sovereignty, taps into a new product we're building called Bruce, which I don't have time for, but I'm happy to show you afterwards. This is Bruce. So to sort of conclude, I think the DXP of the future is agentic, citation grounded, multilingual, transparent, all of that's really closer than you think. So the platform is ready, and the question we ask our customers, our leads, our stakeholders, and you is, are you also ready for that future? Thank you.
There's no time for questions.
That's okay.
Next up, we've got Christoph.